Inside Leominster is brought to you through the generous support of Amica Flooring, 43 Wayland Street, Fitchburg, 978-342-7070, and by Service Oil Company, 345R Lancaster Street, Leominster, 978-466-1922.
Hello and welcome to Inside Leominster. My name is Dean Mazzarella, Mayor for the city, and yes, as we are each and every Thursday night, the whole crew at Inside Leominster is here. We're happy to have you. We're live, 978-537-7760 is the number to call if you'd like. We'll be talking tonight. We have a whole panel set up, so it looks a little bit different here tonight, but the topic tonight will be verbal and emotional abuse as it relates to child abuse and sexual assault. And so we have some real good members here on the panel tonight. And so you want to stay tuned, and if you have any questions while we're on that subject, again, just give us a buzz at 978-537-7760. I see a flashing light to my right, which usually means it's time for the Art Report. Art, are you there? I guess Art must be on the golf course or something like that. While we get a hold of Art, I want to remind you that coming up this Saturday is Shop for the Heart 2018 at Newsnock Country Club. Speaking of golf, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., join us for a fun ladies' night of shopping to benefit its My Heart New England, who provides non-medical support, educational, and advocacy for those affected by congenital heart defects. And featuring Lulu LaRue, In the Meadow Farm, Pampered Chef, Usborne Brooks, Books 31, Airborne, Lip Sense, Craft Therapy, Primitive Place, and a whole lot more. So, anyway, is Art there?
Yes, we are.
Mr. Art.
You.
I mentioned the words Monusnock Country Club.
Uh-huh.
I was by this morning. Other than a few wet spots, it's looking good.
Yeah, there's still a little snow in Gardner. I called up there yesterday to see what was going on.
It's the
Be
sun.
another week or so, and we'll be out there.
The sun is doing its job.
Hey, you know, last week you mentioned about the mental toughness of golfers.
Yes.
Well, this week is the Masters, and yesterday, a young guy, a big kid, Tony Fayu, I think he's either a Polynesian or a Hawaiian. Got a hole-in-one on the first round, and to celebrate, he was running down the par 3, and he started to run backwards, dislocated his left ankle.
No.
Now, the camera's on him, and his ankle is going west, and the rest of it's going east. He reaches down and pushes the ankle back and pops it into place, gets up, finished the round. Today, he walked 18, and he's in second place.
Come on.
Yeah. Second place he's in right now. Unbelievable.
What? It's a Roger Clemens story.
Oh, it was, I was watching and I was cringing. And he just reached down. He's sitting on the ground. He reached down. He popped it back in. You could see it.
Man.
Yeah, that's.
Well, they do. They just zero in, focus, concentrate, stick to the mission, and they go.
Yep, just like when my wife makes meatballs. Concentrate.
You got to do it. If you're going to do it, you got to do it right.
Yep.
And if you're going to do it right,
no recipe either.
Stick to the mission.
It's all, people always ask her, "What's your recipe?" She points to her head.
Yeah.
That's how my mother did it.
Put the video camera on her.
Yep.
So
speaking of cameras, last year I found an old Kodak movie camera, and I brought it down and gave it to Carl.
Yeah.
Today, I found the projector that goes with it.
Come on.
Perfect shape, in the box. I'm going to be bringing it to him next week.
8 millimeter?
Yes. They're all real, regular film.
Remember the sound?
Old stuff.
And all of a sudden it would break.
Yep.
Right in the good part.
Yeah.
All right, we got a song for you tonight. It's easy, right? But it sort of sets the tone. So it might be, during the week I'll get accused of throwing you a softball, but because it's opening day at Fenway,
Don't tell me to take me up to the ball game.
I'm going to throw you an easy one.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
You got to get both, the name of the song and the artist. You should already have it.
Each time we part,
Jay and the American.
wants to die.
Calling me am I.
That's it.
Jay and the American.
Hold this note. Watch this. Check your watch.
Loving me, my friend, could be unfair.
I like the shirt.
Till the
There you go.
That was a PBS special.
Hey,
Good
we got to
show.
check. We got to check the schedule and see where he's playing.
I think he's part-time now. He's getting up there,
Oh,
hitting those notes, you know.
yeah. Well, we'll go see
Yeah.
him. I'd like to see him.
Yeah. He likes to gamble.
But that's all he works for.
Yeah. Yesterday we went to the one in Rhode Island. Give it a shot.
Yep.
So I walked into where they had the $5 slots. I looked at them. I said, nope. They were all the videos, and I don't like that. I just like the old-fashioned 3-reel.
Yes.
So I go over and I find Mrs. Bartlett's playing her penny machine. I sit down next to her and I'm smiling, shaking my head. I said, pennies, are you serious? So after about 10 minutes, she says, you got to play the penny machine. I says, oh, for crying out loud. So I put a $5 bill in. May God be my judge. I hit the button, maximum bet, bang, 100.5.
Come on.
150 bucks.
No more making fun of Mrs.
No,
Bartlett.
no, I cashed it out. I went and put the receipt into the money machine. I got my $1.50. I stopped playing, had a good time.
Good
I
man.
brought it home.
That's what you call mental
Good
stick-to-itness.
Next time I'll lose my shirt.
That's all right.
That's all right. That's right.
Well, there's one thing
Gotta
we
have
know
fun.
is you'll never catch me there.
I hear you.
I'll go for a concert or something, but they won't even catch me for a penny.
They have nickel slots too. But you
catch
know,
me-
they got you. They're not. You know, you say penny slots, and people
No.
think you sit there and drop a penny.
Exactly.
No.
Right.
Most of them, the minimum bet's like 60 pennies.
Right.
So it's really $1 slot,
Pretty
you know,
soon it's
whatever.
$5,
Up to
20.
300 pennies, which
Right.
is what I hit for the
Right.
150. So they're making money off those penny machines, real good.
You sure are.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
all
You go through a $20 bill there just as fast as you can on
Exactly.
a dollar slot.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Art. Over and
Okay.
out.
Behave, stay healthy.
That's-
Good job.
That's the plan. I'm craving ice cream tonight.
Friday, they open up down at the end of Day Street here.
I may have to visit.
This Friday, yep.
I may have to visit. Okay,
I
Art.
hope. All right.
We
take
are
care.
taking a short break. We're going to line up our panel, and we're coming back here at Inside Leominster. Be right back.
You saw me standing alone without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. You knew just what I was there for. You heard me say my prayer for someone I really care for. And then the Saturday before the only one moms would ever hold. I heard somebody whisper bom, ba bom, ba bom, bom, ba ba bom, ba bom, for dang, 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 for ding and on, ding, boom.
Hey, we're back here with a little blue moon. I think we missed one. Did you see the moon the other night there? It was Easter and a full moon. And what else was it? April Fools.
April Fools. Yep.
All in one day. All in one day. It's like the bonus. And I had to drive out of town like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And it seemed like the moon just followed me.
Beautiful.
Just followed me. Kept to my left the whole time. It was like my spotlight. 146 south. Just this moon just so lit everything up. It was fun. Welcome. I'm going to let anybody introduce themselves so we can move quicker. You have to leave, so you have to go to another event, right?
Yes, I do. So I don't even know where I should look, but thank you for having me. Christina Gonzalez, Spanish American Center, also representative of My Care Initiative.
My name is Faith Best. I'm a cultural broker coordinator for the YWCA's Domestic Violence Services Program, and I am representing the YWCA.
My name is Ashley Dion. I oversee trauma services for LUC in North Central Mass.
My name is Kenesha Coy. I'm the architect of this panel, Gomir Mass panel, and I am the executive director of My Care Initiative and Break Through Silence.
What a nice voice. Hey, how's that coming out, Carl? We got microphones. Look up in the area. We got microphones all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Huh? She's got a
We
voice.
can hear you okay.
You can hear? You sure? Are you paying attention back there?
Yes, we are.
Usually Price is Right is on. And that's, so at any minute you could hear, no, that's not the answer. I'm sure while they watch the show. Go ahead. What's that?
Lynn Rocker, I'm the Domestic Violence Specialist for the Department of Transitional Assistance in Fitchburg, Mass.
Hi, I'm Heidi Sulabov from Pathways for Change. I'm the Director of Counseling and we're the local Rape Crisis Center.
My name is Robert Hines. I'm the Director of Counseling Services at Fitchburg State University, and I co-coordinate our FAVE initiative. That's the Fitchburg Anti-Violence Education Program.
My name is Tom Howder, and I just represent a community member.
Hi, Natalie Higgins, Leominster State Representative, but for 10 years I was a rape crisis counselor and last with Pathways for Change.
Well, this is a great panel. This is good. And hopefully we can sort of bring some education and awareness and help somebody who might be watching and this gets taped over and they watch it over and again. And that's a good thing. And our topic tonight is verbal and emotional abuse as it relates to child abuse and sexual assault. It's a very complicated subject. Not easy at all. Each situation is a little bit different. Every person is different. Every person that seeks counseling deals with it in a different way. Where do we start tonight? Let's start with, let's start the definition of it, because oftentimes people will think, well, exactly what is the word abuse mean, right? Where does it start in that? And we live in a changing world where we need to redefine, we need to explain to people what the rules are, right? How things have changed.
Absolutely. I'm going to look to Heidi if she would, because she is great at the definitions.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. Well, like you said, it's kind of something that continues to evolve. And I think when we look at what's going on in our culture right now with the Me Too movement, I think it's redefined verbal abuse for lots of folks and put it on the radars in a different way. But essentially, it's words that hurt. And one thing that I think many of us believe on this panel is that any type of additional abuses that could occur to somebody always start with those words. Always start with words that hurt. And we forget the pain of that, and we forget the longevity that those words can have.
So a lot of times now I hear things, and even I would talk to people and they'll say, there'll be a certain situation, somebody will be offended by something, and they'll say, I absolutely meant nothing by that, at all. And I know the person, I'm like, clearly they didn't mean anything by it.
Right.
But, if you're in a group of friends or whatever, you kid each other, whatever, but sometimes you're in an environment where you don't know who the people are, and they don't know who you are, and so how are they supposed to understand how you meant that? Right? I mean, in reality.
Right.
So we have to kind of retrain our brains, right? Because we aren't sitting with all our buddies here, or with all our family. We all understand each other. We all know each other. So you just got to be careful at sort of what you say. And it's heartbreaking sometimes for the other person that maybe is accused of, well, you said this and you hurt my feelings. And for somebody to say, I absolutely had no intentions at all. But you can see that. You can see it right away whether or not somebody meant to say something that was hurtful.
Right, and to piggyback off of what you were just saying, I think sometimes we're in a culture where people are just so unwilling to have dialogue and have conversations, and
Why?
It's important.
I can talk to you through text, and I could, right? I
We
could,
have so many ways of being able to do
I don't have
it.
to talk to you.
Right, but being able to show up and have these conversations are important.
Remember kids used to pass notes in school?
I do. I was one
That
of
was
those
a way
kids.
of communicating, right? I never got a note. Mine just said, hey, pinhead. You know, mine didn't say, pay attention, you know?
Right. I actually got the notes thrown at me, but that's a totally different show.
They made it into a plane.
Yeah. It was kind of awesome. But
But you're right.
it's just one of those things that we need to be able to actually speak to people, like, you know, that comment actually hurt my feelings, or that was a bit insensitive, and being able to have that awareness and to have that courage within oneself to be like, you know what, I didn't mean to hurt you.
Right,
Let's
right.
just move forward. And how do we move forward? Because often that's not the conversation. It's just like, oh, well, I got hurt, or you got hurt, and there's such this antagonism, and it's not like, oh, how do we move forward from this?
Everybody has a little trigger somewhere on
Yes.
something that bugs them. You know, something that they're really, you know, like you say the wrong word, right? You can say a million words, you say the wrong one. It's something that, you know, that they're sensitive about,
Definitely.
right? And you said, oh, and boy, you know it. Usually, the reaction for the other person is, oh boy, I didn't. Most of the time, and that's the hope, is that you can see it in their face that they didn't mean that. And you're right. Come on, can I just talk to you for a second? You know what you just said? You know, my mother's Hispanic, or you know, my cousin's everywhere. You know, that was a little bit distasteful. You know, and you can tell by the person's reaction whether or not they're sincere about
Definitely.
it. Like, no big deal. This isn't gonna go anywhere. Let's just, you know, I just want to let you know. And you're right. You know why the Amish people don't use the phone? For that very reason. Amish people do not use the telephone. They do actually use the phone, but it's just for business. And that's it. And then if you start talking about the weather or anything else, for that very reason. It's so easy to say things to people when you're not face to face with them, but boy, it's really hard to say that. So the first lesson is, I think that you try to explain is, put it through the filter, right? Just put it through the filter and think about it. Think about who's around, think about what you say. And the most important thing is young kids that might be around, because they're gonna hear this stuff. When we hear people say things, most of the time it's coming from the home. Am I right? You think so? I mean, is that fair enough?
Fair enough.
They're learning these things. There are certain things that kids learn. They learn about sex on the street, right? Because very few people sit down and have a conversation with their kids. But boy, they'll say everything. They won't talk about that, right? But they'll say everything else you can ever imagine while watching TV, or they get upset at something, and they don't think anybody's listening. Like, it's like the old Italians would, if they didn't want you to understand, you know, they didn't think you were listening, you understood. They were talking Italian, the Greeks did it, the Irish did it. We all just talk in code because we don't think the kids understand. Am I right about
Yeah,
that?
you're absolutely right. And that's one of the things that is really central to the whole emotional and verbal abuse component. It's understanding that kids are listening, and we might not give them that credit, but we all know in our different ways of how we contribute to the community and our families, kids, they're always listening. They're just little
Man, they're like
sponges.
satellites.
Well, and I want to add too that a lot of this is about perception. And so, you know, especially when we're talking about the context of child abuse, you know, what's abusive to one child may not seem abusive to another, and a lot of that has to do with family culture. It has
Every
to do
kid's
with what
different.
they know. Every child is going to interpret and understand their experiences differently. And so when we talk about, you know, child abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, be it what it is, and traumatic experiences, it's really about the perception of the person experiencing it. And so for one family where maybe they're a rough and tumble type of family who joke around and call each other names and that's just how they are, that might not be perceived as abusive. And in another family where that's not the norm or the culturally accepted way of being, that could very much be very painful and harmful to the child experiencing that.
And you, go ahead, you were all gonna say something, so
something, and I-
jump in.
That's
Jump
fine.
in, we've got
Thank you
time.
very much,
Of
no
course.
problem. So one of the things that I just want to make sure that I remind people of, or that we need to be conscious of, is that when we're talking about any kind of abuse, abuse is a pattern behavior, and abuse is also a learned behavior. So when children see abuse, when children, I should say, act out abusive behaviors, or they have abusive actions, whether it's verbal, emotional, physical, and so on and so forth, it's something that they most often, you're absolutely right, learn from home, or depending upon the culture that they live in, it can be cultural. So there are a number of different things, unhealthy behaviors that children learn, and so we need to be conscious of the things that we ourselves are teaching children. But we can't do that if we ourselves are not aware of what it means to be healthy versus unhealthy. So I think in our own society, we practice a lot of unhealthy behaviors, and we need to address that
Yes.
first.
Right.
So
First and
are we
foremost.
all guilty at some point of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time
Of
to
course.
the wrong group of people, and we feel bad? And sometimes you can't feel bad enough. You're like, oh no, I can't believe I just said can't put it back in the tube. Now what do I do? And you can't
Make it
over,
right.
you can't be over. Sorry, right? You can't be apologizing. Oh, I'm really sorry. Okay, I get it now, right?
But the lesson is in that, well, okay, I messed up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right, it's about reparative
How do
work.
we move forward? Always moving forward.
But the culture has changed, right? The culture has changed, and I remember it was nothing at all to be in the locker room at the police department or the locker room at any shop in town or go down to the DPW, and when you open a locker, pinned up on side, what did you see?
Naked girl.
Well, they're naked, but you'd see, right? So now, this wasn't like just Jane Fonda or something, right? They don't, so, but that all changed, right? When that all changed, you don't see that anymore. That took some sort of training because people are like, what's the big deal? Well, it is a big deal to some people, right?
Well, just because I know I have to go real soon, I just want to make sure I express the fact that it's very important to recognize that kids do find a lot of avenues to soak up all this negative words, but where do they turn to find the proper way?
Right.
And we can't always rely on just school.
Right.
We have to make sure we're putting our kids in places that they're going to grow and be nurtured and taught these things. You know, half the time, depending on communities, parents are not home half the time, brothers and sisters are watching, you know, so we want to make sure that we advocate and promote programs that are within our community that parents can put their kids in for free, where they can learn these things when parents don't have the time to teach. And I think that's very important, being proactive and also focusing on that emotional IQ and teaching your child what that means. Like, before you speak, think about what you're gonna say. And if you know you're saying something wrong, know how to apologize. Because a lot of times, some of us like to turn our face and just go about our life. But, you know, I think making sure we fix whatever we mess up and be accountable. Not only as the child, but also abusers have to be accountable. And how do we hold those people accountable as well?
And I think today, and it's just I listen to what people say. I just like to sit in the background and listen. We're awful mean to each other. And kids, as much as, you know, we talk about everything that's going on, I'm not happy with some of the things that I hear people do, because listen, I grew up in late 60s, 70s, and it was just beginning to turn into the world of acceptance. Accept this, you can accept that. And we did pretty good. My friends and I, we did all right. I have to little tap on the back here. But I'm not all that sure that all those words and all those things translated to another generation of people. I'm not saying casting a judgment on anybody, but there are things that I hear that shouldn't be that way, because a lot of people, Martin Luther King, there are a whole lot of activists that did a whole lot of work to get us to this point where there shouldn't be any of this anymore. I mean, really, I was in Chelsea yesterday. My grandmother lived there. It was Italians and Jews. And now it's people from Brazil and Spanish, African Americans, another melting pot. But it didn't look any different than when I was there as a kid. The people's ethnic backgrounds changed. But you know what? They were doing the same things. They were going to ethnic bakeries like we did. They were standing on the corner chatting. They were going to church, same kind of thing. I just think we should be a little further ahead than where we are. Because, you know what I mean? I mean, it just isn't just about everything's automatic and a click and a point and technology. We can take a heart out, work on it, put it back inside. You know, so you're right. We have to start looking for other avenues where people can understand this better and practice it. Every one of us, right?
And holding people accountable. So, example, if you saw that person, what do you do as a person when you see something wrong happening?
Exactly.
Do you say something, or do you keep on going and let them say to someone else and see what happens? Like, we have to be accountable for ourselves, and when we are also in those situations, even though we are not the ones doing the negative behavior, we need to make sure we let the people know.
And there's a
what they're
right way
doing.
about that,
Of
right?
course.
So you don't want to make it like an embarrassing situation, because then it's fight or flight, right? Then they're like, hey, wait a minute, you're attacking me here. I'm going to defend myself. No?
I think
Yeah.
there's a fallacy too. The whole old adage, like, do as I say, not as I do, as a parent or as a role model. And, you know, at the end of the day, the way that the brain works and the way that children learn is through modeling. They learn by their experiences and what they are seeing around them. So the whole do as I say, not as I do is not effective, because that's not how the brain develops, and that's not how children learn.
The great experiment is put a bunch of kids at a playground. They all get along just fine. Just leave them alone, right? As a community person, your observations.
There's a lot to be said, and a lot of aspects with this as well too. In my profession, I'm in a position where I hire and fire people. One of the things I look for when I hire somebody is civility. can you get along with other people? Because I can teach you the skills that you need on the job.
Right.
I can't necessarily teach you how to get along with people. And in my line of work, I need you to interact with engineers, with marketing people, the whole 9 yards. And it's
Team effort.
It is, and it's difficult. You talk about what people learn, and in society nowadays, I mean, it's you're bombarded with negativity, and you're bombarded with incivility. You can go to a news channel. You can go to one news channel, and you can hear the right bashing on the left. You're going to flip the channel, hear the left bashing on the right. And why do they do that? For ratings.
Not for me. I don't watch TV. There goes me. There goes me.
In some ways, too, it's innate, because if you go to a hockey game, and I like to watch hockey games, what happens when, I like watching the game, I like watching the flow of the game, but, I'm not going to lie, it's interesting, and the crowd gets excited when two ruffians drop the gloves and go at it for a couple of minutes. The crowd cheers. Okay, it's a diversion, but there's so much of that I think is people and kids perceive as normal, which is just not.
It desensitized.
It
right?
does.
You're right. You hit it right on the
And in
head.
social media, you can hide behind a pseudonym and say any evil or
You
mean
can
thing
get a
you
fake
want to
name.
and get away with it. And so that's kind of the challenge. Is the people never forget how you made them feel, which from bad or good, you always remember how someone made you feel more than what you say. And so I think those are the legacies, the things that we have to try to teach kids. And if kids have been mistreated, to try to pull them out of an environment by saying, you know what, it really doesn't have to be that way. But that's hard. But I think it has to start from the adults by saying, you know what, there's nothing that gets you any farther in life than civility.
And that's why it's so important for us to be able to work together, to be able to get beyond our differences and focus on what is the goal, what do we want our world to look like? And our world can be as simple as, what do we want our neighborhoods to look like? What do we want our cities to look like?
Are we getting better?
Right.
Right? Babe Ruth said things never stay the same. They either get better or worse. Are we getting better or are we getting worse? The answer?
I think we're getting better.
All
I
right.
think we're having these conversations. Heidi brought up the whole Me Too movement. We're finally giving space for people to come forward and feel comfortable and supported talking about their experiences. And back to what so many of you said at Pathways for Change, I was the teen counselor. By far the hardest job I'll ever have, going into middle schools and high schools and talking about healthy relationships. We don't model it. And we have lots of examples. I'm dating myself a little bit, but I was a teen counselor when Jersey Shore was really popular. I'd go into middle schools and the teachers would be horrified that I was asking, like, who watched it last night? Every hand would shoot up. And I'd be like, okay, so let's talk about Sammy and Ronnie. Is that what's good about their relationship? What's bad about their relationship? And you learn a lot about these 6th and 7th graders who are seeing really unhealthy relationships in social media and media.
Now, I just wonder, because the new show is coming out,
Oh,
and I'm
no.
sure they're all...
Another reason why I don't watch TV.
Just
2
are
seconds.
those same kids going to watch the show and see that they have actually grown? And I don't even know if they're going to act the same way from the first one, but
Right.
we would hope not. But ratings and things like that, you need, so it's just
But
unfortunate.
here's
But I
the
think there's a
thing.
time and a place for everything.
Here's the thing, and I know all cops think the same, is nobody trains young kids to be in a relationship. It's usually when things happen is when a kid has come out of a relationship. First of all, young people don't really know how to get in. It just sort of happens. Boy, getting out of one, or the heartbreak of that. Nobody ever told you about it. Nobody ever explained these things. Maybe we can explain these things. We don't know the answer to these things.
One thing that our agency does, we'll go into the schools and we'll do the safe dates trainings and healthy relationship trainings. There's a heck of a lot more schools we'd like to get into, but like Natalie said, it's challenging just to be accepted, to be brought in. Sometimes people think, oh, we can't talk about this because it's going to make it happen, and that is absolutely not.
They're going to
correct.
go out and do this stuff.
That's right, and it's so frustrating to hear that, because it's like, well, if we're not talking about it, has it been going away? So why don't we turn the other page and see what else we can do?
We used to go to houses, get restraining orders as a cop. That's how it used to be. Go, you issue the restraining order, get your stuff, whatever you can grab, your toothbrush, a couple of things, and move on. You gotta get out of here. If you come back, you're gonna get arrested. Well, that didn't solve anything. It was handing somebody a piece of paper that didn't solve anything. And so here you are with this guy or lady or significant other, whoever it might be, and they're like, what? I have to leave and nobody ever explained it. There was no place for them to go. Chances are, 2 or 3 times out of 10, you're going to deal with that person again.
Absolutely. I think, so I can speak to that. I used to be a safe plan advocate for the YWCA's domestic violence services, and I used to work in the courts, both the Worcester District and the Probate and Family, and I'm still very much involved on that front. I'm in a different position, but one of the things that I did recognize and notice is that we have to do a really good job, and I think a better job as a society, of educating the individuals who we are supposed to be supporting and assisting with these services. I was also a facilitator for a very well-known agency, and I facilitated abuser groups. So I work with abusers.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things that I often said to them was, no one teaches you all how to be in relationships. So I said that exactly.
I bet they all said this.
Listen,
They're all like,
yeah.
oh, you're right. Nobody told me.
Nobody ever talks about it. And so I really tooted the YWCA's horn here a little bit when I said, you know, I think we do a very good job of going out, just like your agency, into these communities, into schools, the ones that will allow for us to come in and have
I get it. I
conversations
know what you're
about
talking about. I know. Believe me. Don't worry. Working on it. It'll happen.
We could have a little bit more
I
out
know.
there, but I'm sure you're doing a great job.
Well, what
of
happens is everybody wants to get into schools because that's where the kids are.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, the poor teacher's like, hey, I got to get the kids ready for MCAS. I got to
Right.
get them ready for park testing. I got to
Can
get
you
them ready
really
for this.
focus on MCAS when you have bullying going on
There we
because
go.
they are not socially,
When a
emotionally
kid
on the IQ?
is absolutely
So are we
mentally
really?
just completely, it doesn't get sick every day about going to school. It's the worst thing they can do. And what do? We force the kid to go to school, and I'll talk to the other kid. Oh, that's going to help. That's going to make it worse, right? You're right. We have a lot of work to do in those areas. But you're right. We've come a long way in the domestic violence world because it went from here you go. You got to get out of here. Chances are the guy's coming back most of the time. It's a guy. They're coming back. Now you're going to have to arrest them. And nobody ever sat him down like you do now, like happens now. That's where I think we made progress to say, this is not healthy. This is not a healthy relationship. This is why you're not in the relationship anymore, because it's not healthy. And it took a long time for this lady guy, whoever it might be, to get out of it.
And I'm so glad you said what you just said, because abuse isn't only happening to women, it's happening to men too.
Right.
And there are more men who are coming forward to be able to express this, but there's so much shame that goes with that because, well, I'm a man and I shouldn't be in this abusive situation. I shouldn't be having these things happen to me, but there are different ways, including emotional and verbal abuse, that affect men.
Right.
And they just don't feel like society will accept that.
So we've got to start at the very beginning on what is a healthy relationship? What is healthy, what isn't? How to sort of, girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever says, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to get out of the relationship. What? No, I wasn't ready for that. That emotion was in here somewhere, stored somewhere. I don't know what it is. And they mixed it with this and they mixed it with that and it came out something else. But I wasn't ready for that. I don't know how to deal with that.
I think a lot of people don't understand the process and the cycles that we all naturally go through in
Yes.
life. So
That's
we
the point I was
start
trying to make.
teaching the processes and
It's
the
human behavior.
cycles. It's like, all right, I'm in the denial state. Now I'm in the mad state. All right, I'm getting through these states. But do they understand those states and how to react to those
Right.
states? And I think that's the part
Yes.
that's lacking.
And that's training and education and exposure and we all handle it differently, right?
If I may, I just want to be it's really important in the words that we use, and so I just want to make sure and remind us that all that it doesn't just happen, at the breakup point. So abuse, it starts
Right, right.
somewhere. It's usually it's in the beginning, and we need to pay attention to the red flags. We need to be teaching people what are red flags that we need to be noticing and recognizing in relationships, and what an unhealthy relationship looks like. Because if we are teaching people what red flags look like, then we're better preparing them to set those say, hey, pump the brakes. I don't like this. This doesn't feel good, and have a conversation. And if it really continues on, then to back out of that relationship before it becomes too late. Because the most dangerous time for a person when they are leaving an abusive relationship is when they're trying to leave.
And for as much progress as we've made, there's still such a stigma about being a victim of domestic violence or, having those experiences. And even such that people are not self-identifying that that has been their experience.
Well,
and
nobody wants to acknowledge it,
No one
right?
wants to acknowledge
You want
it.
to hope it'll get better.
And if it's not been physical.
Go ahead, you're
then
chomping
it's
at the
not
bit. Go ahead.
I'm trying, yeah. So this is the part that we're missing here, and I think all the way around. We have great victim services.
Yes.
We are
We're
starting
lucky.
and we're really starting to focus more on accountability. What's missing here is the services for the kids. I mean, they're there, but folks are not acknowledging the damage that is happening in these homes to these kids.
Because we can't always see it.
No, right. Well, you can see it. It's called ADHD.
Right,
It's called
right, right.
bipolar. It's called all these diagnoses that are coming into these
But
kids'
it's not
schools.
direct.
Misdiagnosed.
Right.
Misdiagnosed.
I hit you in the arm, you feel
Right.
it. This is something that
Right. So
we're
not
just
only
ignoring. Like, yeah,
not
it's
only
okay.
kids are not learning healthy relationships in general, they're learning very unhealthy relationships in these situations. So, you know, all this kind of negative stuff, our brains are kind of designed to focus on the negativity because that prepares us to be safe.
Right.
So that's what they focus on all the time.
Right.
So there's not even, like, these positive interactions are not even creating memories because their memories are the negative interactions.
So they need to be reset, and because a lot of this is often generational, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, we get surprised at the courthouse when we see another generation of people like, isn't that, weren't you the son or daughter of, and we act surprised. Well, guess what? I mean, that's, you know, they see that. That's what's in their home. That's what they see and they live. And
And the inability to recognize these signs and symptoms in the child is often tied to that stigma of not wanting to self-identify, because it's one thing to make a referral for your child and refer for the child who's had an experience, but to say the child experienced domestic violence, that's my experience, right? So if I'm a parent saying that my child has witnessed domestic violence, I have to admit that that was my experience too. And I think that's the challenge, because Luck does have the Child Exposed to Domestic Violence program, and it's been very challenging to build that. I think primarily for one of those reasons is parents aren't ready to self-identify.
these are all those things that we think of a taboo that we don't talk about. We don't want to address. The kid will grow out of it, and it's just a stage. You know, they're going to sign him up for soccer, and he'll be fine. And
We want a medication. We want to medicate them. We want to call it ADHD because we don't want to admit that it's
But
traumatizing.
that's a symptom. The real
It is.
cause is what we already know, and that's what's got to be dealt with. Because the rest of the symptoms will just change, right? There'll be anxiety, and the kid will have panic attacks, and afraid of this and afraid of that. And we'll say, oh, let's just turn the lights on, and the kid won't be afraid anymore. Or, let's give him some medicine and Xanax or something to calm the kid right down. He won't have panic attacks. Well, the root of the problem is not his anxiety. It's what's causing the anxiety, right?
You can't put a Band-Aid over a bullet hole. So it's like address the actual issues, and it's fairly complicated, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done.
Could we drill down to the sexual assault part? Does anybody want to touch that?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay. So,
Well, you know, one thing that we've touched upon this, that, you know, when we have these environments where we're raising our kids with this, even if it's not abuse yet, this verbal inappropriateness, these jokes that aren't funny,
Right.
or that some people might find funny, we're also, like you said earlier, desensitizing
Right.
them. And so they could end up finding themselves in domestic violence relationships down the road that they didn't realize because they were so used to the verbal abuse that
They
by the
thought it
time
was
they
normal.
hit it, exactly. And the same with sexual violence. You know, we get so used to the cat calls on the streets or the hey babies or aren't you, you know, from total strangers that a lot of people do not like. And I've seen this peculiar dynamic that in some ways people think, well, I'll just, to make it an even playing ground, we'll start doing cat calls to men too. And that's no more appropriate than to the women. But we get immersed in this and we get accustomed to either tuning it out or just being completely desensitized from it. And then it becomes something more down the road. And that's scary.
The guy that owns Match.com and he owns a lot of these sites said in an interview not long ago, guy's in 70s, 80s, he said, I'm worried about the next generation of young kids because what they can get from their computer and what goes on in the porn industry or whatever it is that kids are watching. They can all get it on their phone. Anybody that thinks they're not seeing this is out of their minds, right? Unless you stand, and that's why we have, I mean, seriously, unless you're monitoring these kids, the stuff that they're seeing, and he's worried about the next generation and what they see and how that relates to a relationship. Have they forgot what a real healthy relationship is with a lady or a guy or whoever it might be? And so that made me think for a second, like, you could become desensitized to what is, in other words, what's right gets sort of mixed in with who knows what's right
Absolutely
anymore.
And the average age of you know, technically consuming pornography, but I'd say a lot of kids find it accidentally, is 10, 11, 12 years old. That, as a parent whose children were that age one time,
Scary.
that's horrifying. And a lot of times, you know, my son when he was younger was Googling, you know, some anime character and came up with pornography and was horrified. And thankfully, we had the relationship where he could come and talk to me about it. But if I don't have that relationship with my child, then maybe there's some curiosity that happens and they start looking for more and more, and then suddenly they're hooked. Because it helps rewire the brain. There's chemicals.
And then they forget what a healthy relationship is with a woman and become so desensitized, they don't know right from wrong anymore. It just becomes a culture. So that's...
You have people who go to the opposite end who, if You have kids who are curious about sex. They just try and just annihilate the whole conversation, like, oh, don't be interested, don't do this, and not really promoting that, well, having these questions and these urges are actually healthy. It's okay, but everything, time and a place.
And
right, or going
here's the list of 10 things for a healthy relationship, and here are the 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship. And embed that in so they understand it, right? And practice it. 978-537-7760 is the number to call. We got great folks here on the panel. They all bring a little bit of extra expertise in certain areas, which is really helpful. And the mission is to do better. The mission is to educate and expose and change the culture and sort of help those that need help in whatever capacity is, whether the victim or the perpetrator or whoever it might be, because that isn't fixing anything if you're just fixing one side of it all. And the other thing I think that goes along with domestic violence is, how do I just leave? Where do I go? How do I, and I know we have great resources around here, but that's what a victim is thinking about. What do I go find it? How much is rent somewhere else? Where do I go? How do I say it? What do I tell my family? I don't want to tell my family they think this guy's okay, because I certainly don't call them and tell them what's going on. All those things are circulating, and then people will say to them, you just got to get out. You just got to get out of here. It's not that easy. It's much more. Willie Nelson's book. You know what the name of it is? No, the book. The book. It's really complicated. That's it. That's the name of the book. It's really complicated. It's a long story. It's really complicated, and it is, right? It's not all that easy. So, as people that are on this side, in the old days, are like, listen, you got to get your stuff. Call your parents. Have them get. You got to get out of here. This guy, you got to get away from him. It was easy for me to say, but in the meantime, where am I going? My relatives live in another state. They don't really know what's going on. I don't have the money to go. What if he finds me? All those things. So it's very, very, very important that they have a good support system, and that's what we're lucky for around here, is that there are a lot of people that are looking to help. Anybody have any phone numbers before I forget that we want to put up?
Sorry, I was just going to say, while you're talking about how lucky we are to have such wonderful resources in this area, I want to mention that all of these resources are coming together on Tuesday at City Hall for our Community Voices event. So if you are wondering more information about, what are the rights of people who have been experiencing victimization or the resources that are available, we actually are hosting that on Tuesday.
Oh, that's good. Great.
And to continue with it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and at the end of the month, the last Sunday, it's April 29th from 3 to 4:30, we're teaming up with the Worcester National Organization of Women and a lot of the service providers to provide an advocacy day, kind of Advocacy 101. How do you make sure that we have even more of these programs in our communities?
And you asked for a phone number, our sexual violence hotline, 800-870-5905.
24/7.
24/7, 365.
Just Google it, and it's there. Sort of the other question I thought is that, I know we talk about this, but I always like to talk about the hope part. Can we get kids fixed, right, so that they don't have to be medicated, so that they can live, so they know the difference between an unhealthy relationship? Can we get people that may be in a relationship who are not having a healthy relationship to have a healthy relationship?
Can I just say, what I do is I do trauma therapy with children, ages 2 and up, and I've had the fortune of working and helping so many children and families heal. And that's why I keep doing that. I'm sure we've all had those experiences, which is why we are still working in the fields that we do.
So this is the hope part, because I always like to leave every conversation with hope.
It is so incredibly hopeful and so incredibly moving when you get to the other side with these families and you hear them say, we're not afraid anymore, or you see the change in the behaviors, you see the shift in the family dynamics, and it's so incredibly powerful and moving and inspiring. And that's actually also part of the event on Tuesday, is people sharing their stories of overcoming and sharing their stories of inspiration and hope. So 4 to 7 on Tuesday at Leominster City Hall if you want to hear those stories in person from survivors. But it absolutely is hopeful, and it's never too late to begin that process.
So the first step is acknowledgement, wherever it is. My child has a problem, because it's acknowledging there's a problem. And then the easy part is there's so much help. There's so much help out there at no expense at all in most cases for people. Just acknowledging, okay, let's face it, there's a problem here. My son or daughter is acting this way, and there's some other reasons why that's happening, and I know that. And it's a hard thing to say for parents, to have to go and sit down with somebody and say, yep, time out. What's been going on hasn't been healthy, and I can't let this go on. I got to fix it. I got to be part of the solution. I can't let this kid go on from the 2nd grade to the 3rd to the 4th. and us keep thinking, and the teacher saying there's a problem with this kid, and everybody's surprised there's a problem. There shouldn't be a surprise, based on what that kids had to be exposed to. Young, kids that should be playing with matchboxes and dolls and having fun and out playing in the sand and everything, and that's just not happening. So there's plenty of help. It's just getting people to acknowledge, Houston, there's a problem here, right? And it can be fixed.
And I want to do a shout out just because this is something I worked with teen survivors, and the hardest part we had was getting the family members to understand that they can accept services from our local rape crisis centers, because the trauma of family members trying to figure out how to support someone through that healing process, that's just as hard. And to be able to have that safe person to talk to, because maybe you don't know how to talk to them about it.
Right.
Maybe you don't know what you're going to say. Is it going to be the right thing? Is it going to make them upset? Is it going to hurt them? So having those safe places and creating those spaces.
So one of the things that we do at I'm going to go for it. At My Care Initiative and Breakthrough Silence is be able to get different organizations and different individuals to be able to come together and share stories, share resources, and we've been doing this for 2 years now, and I connect art with pretty much everything that we do, because it allows for uncomfortable conversations to actually exist. And it's also why I'm in school right now.
If you think I'm hearing this for the first time, just like going to the doctors, if you think this is the first time, right? We all think, oh yeah. Once you realize, no, you're not. Just calm down.
Two things that we've come across the last 2 years are people who are saying, we want to be supportive, but we have no idea how to do this. And then at all of our events, we have people who disclose for the first time, children and adults. This is happening to me. How do I have this stop?
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I can't cry right now. I'm going to get you some help. However we can do this. But it's having everybody be able to come to this table and being able to help children as well as children at heart, because we have adults who have been in these relationships, and because this is also Child Abuse Awareness Month, a lot of adults, as I've been reading and coming across, they don't even address this type of pain until they're adults.
Right.
So now what do we do? We have
That's a long to carry. That's a lot of things. To try to either self-medicate or try to do something to kind of, to submerge the
And I was
horrible
watching
feelings
your
that they
you
have.
had a really awesome recovery show, so a lot of shout outs to you for this. So many people turn to these things like drugs, and anything could be an addiction anyway, but a lot of people don't understand a lot of this is self-medicating to take away that pain.
Kill the pain.
Right.
That stuff that's haunting, the stuff that when you turn the lights off at night, it just haunts you, right? Or a certain trigger, then the triggers go off more often. I guess the rule of thumb is if it's beginning to have an effect on your everyday life, that's pretty much the time. I mean, that's like the breaking time, right? That you really need. If it's beginning to affect your sleep and you can't function anymore, that's the time, whether it's anxiety or panic attacks or whatever it might be, or phobias that you're beginning to develop, it's all part of the problem, and that starts to interfere with your everyday lifestyle, or a kid is not interacting with other kids in the way. That's a pretty good indicator that the word help is the next step, right? I mean, that's.
People not be so ashamed. I'm sorry, this is the last one I got you. How can people not be so ashamed to get help? We have this society where
because we're human beings.
It's
We're
that.
human
But there's so much
beings.
shame with, I need to get help, and I've talked.
Why do you think they sell the potpourri stuff that people spray in the bathroom all the time? You know what I mean? Because we're all ashamed. We don't do that stuff. We don't talk about that stuff. Everything is, you know what I mean? We don't want to talk. See, you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about. You got 7 sprays and they're going off, right? And then you leave it like, wasn't me in there, it was her in there. I don't know. Who was the last person in the bathroom? It was her. No, it wasn't. It was me, right? Am I right? Nobody wants to talk about that stuff.
I was a fan, but now I am 100% a fan of your
You gotta have a little sign that says she did, right? No, but I'm just saying there are a lot of things in life that we don't want to talk about. It's hard. I don't know why, because we're human beings and we're wired. For some people it's easier. Other people it's just difficult because we're wired differently, right?
That's absolutely right. Just like we all need that poopery once in a while, we all need to have a
Good
voice
stuff,
to
by the
talk
way.
to.
Let me
It's
tell
good
you.
stuff. I'm
Good
sold.
stuff. Lavender.
But we need to also be open as bystanders and to support people and as loved ones to be able to have these conversations. And if people really knew the statistics of how many folks are victimized by sexual violence or domestic violence, it's staggering. I mean, they go to the shopping mall. We say 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced some type of sexual violence in their life. And I say, go to the mall, go to the stores, do the math. It's staggering.
Scary.
It is, so we gotta be talking, sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
I
no
can't
worries.
wait.
That's fine. I'm ready to jump in there, but
Go ahead.
it's good. But just speaking of hope, talking about hope and looking in other, an area to see what can we do as a community and to come together. And I think one of the most hopeful things is the fact that we're having these discussions, as someone had so beautifully stated before, and the fact that we're all sitting around the table and wearing the hats that we wear. And now it's time to have conversations. It's time to not just have conversations, but show up and figure out what resources do we have, and how can we utilize those resources in order to help the people who are in most need of our services.
Definitely, because it's this melting pot of being able to contribute. Like, I was thinking about Robert and Fitchburg State and how he contributes and with the FAVE program. And we think sometimes that, we have these kids who are in college and they're on their way, but a lot of these they've been hurt too, and they need these resources. So being able to work within our own sphere of influence and being able to contribute in that way.
I'm not sure if people know, but the YWCA's Domestic Violence Services, we do expand. I know I keep
Is Linda still the director? You know where she's from, right? You know where? Is it Linda?
Linda? Yeah, she's still the director. She's still the ED. I love her.
Do you know where she's from?
She's amazing. Do I know where she's from? This is a shame.
Down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
6th Street.
Oh, wow.
Linda Cavioli.
Yes, Linda Cavioli. I know
I don't know. She should tell everybody this.
She's awesome, but
She's a neighborhood kid.
we've expanded our services at the DVS program, Domestic Violence Services Program, to work with youth and young adults, youth and teens, in the form of providing short-term counseling. And short-term just means, it's really however long they need our services. So we're not clinical staff by any means. I would never take that on. But having those difficult conversations with the parents' permission, of course, even if the child is, it can be as young as 2 years old. We're going to sit down and we're going to play with them, and we're going to talk about things that they've experienced and how that's made them feel, and talk about how they've dealt with it, and then make the appropriate referrals and work with other communities.
And have them live a happy, healthy life, and rather than this buildup, and then they reach their teens and it gets worse, and self-medication, and then violence, and it all stems back to, okay, there was a problem, all right, none of us wanted that to happen, but get some help earlier and your life's going to change. I mean, just take the shackles off, right?
And Mayor, I think an important detail that we should share in Faith, I'm going to throw you in there too, is services at rape crisis centers and DV agencies, the counseling services are free. 100%.
That's what I said. It's
Absolutely. So we've got, to help get folks hooked in and get that support and help heal our corners of the state. And then, again, refer out, because, people can come for our services, but sometimes they need additional. Yeah. And our role is to expand support systems.
Well, I'm happy you're all here. You all seem to get along. Yeah. You all get along well, and that's a good thing, because we can't talk about all getting along, and you're like, ching, send it out, zings, wow, wow, daggers are flying, right? I mean, right? You can't talk. You gotta practice it, right? And everybody gets impatient sometimes and aggravated. I mean, everybody's entitled to it, some normal. Yeah. Arm wrestling, you and you, right up here now, right now. I want to see you guys arm wrestle, okay? And we'll just keep going around the table until there's one left, and then I'm running out. Leominster Public Schools kindergarten registration, speaking of kids, April 7th, which is this Saturday, 8:30 to 1 o'clock, Northwest Elementary School. Don't give the kids sugar before you send them off, because it makes for a long registration. 45 Stearns Ave. The event is for Leominster residents only. Child must be 5 years on or before August 31st. I missed the deadline, thank goodness, because I really needed that extra year to stay home and let my brothers go to school. The youngest kid in the family, you need a little extra time. Listen, talk about inspiration and hope. Time in making it count with Joey Mullaney. He's a Leominster native, diagnosed at age 9 with Frederick's. Is it ataxia? Ataxia, a rare degenerative neuromuscular disorder that erodes coordination, mobility, speech, organ function. This kid's the best. He's going to be at the library this Sunday at 2 p.m. And this guy can motivate you. If you think, if you're sitting home feeling bad because your elbow hurts, or you went out and did some gardening, there's nothing there's nothing that holds this kid down. He's got the greatest attitude. He's a handsome guy. There's nothing. You got a phone call? There's nothing in the world, and he does a really good job motivating people, and his passion and it's just his passion, just his outlook on life. You'll leave. I read his blog and his Facebook page, and I'll tell you, he's something else. This guy, and He moves mountains, and he'll talk to you all about it. And he has people that help him do that. Caller, welcome to the show.
Yes. Hi, Mayor. This is Ruth.
Hi, Ruth.
How you doing?
Good.
I'm calling to talk to your panel tonight. I just want to say that, first of all, I was blessed to have worked in the public school system in the nursing office for quite a while, in a kindergarten office. And I'm just thinking, listening to the panel tonight, and I hesitated to call, but I'm just feeling really passionate about doing that at this point. I think it's really important to work the schools as well as the parents when it comes to the little guys. I'll give you one example of about 500, where this little boy would come to my office every day and he had a stomach ache. Every single day had a stomach ache. Teacher knew as well as I did that he did not just have a stomach ache. And in talking to him, they need somebody to go to trust. They need an adult that they can trust to talk to get things out. I'm lucky enough, and again, blessed enough to have been that person for this particular little boy to come to. And it turned out that he didn't have a stomachache every day. And I apologize for the words; they're not swears. But this 5-year-old little boy told me actually that he said, well, he said my mother is a hooker, and the pimp knocked our door down last night. And I thought, first of all, my God, little kids should not even know those words. And I was so saddened by that. And this happens on an everyday basis with other children. It's just common sense. It seems to me at the end of every day, parent, and I'm talking fast because I see the time, at the end of the day to ask your child, gee, how was your day today? Anything great happen? Or
what was the best part of your day?
Was something upsetting? Did something upsetting happen today? And just typical conversations, but on both ends, school and parents as well, because sometimes the teachers miss it and sometimes the parents miss it, but somebody's got to catch these kids midstream, because this little boy, and there's many others like him, know words and know how to use them and know what they mean, and then they're, like you said, they're misdiagnosed or they're missed, and it's all because of this bad family drama or even bad school drama. It can be on either end. So I don't know what your panel has to think about that.
Perfectly. You explained it perfectly. I think we all agree to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get these little guys and girls, and let's get them back on to playing with cars and having fun and looking forward to coming to school and hanging with their friends and
communication.
again,
All comes back to communication.
Yeah, just leave the little guys alone. You know what? If everybody just leaves them alone, they're fine. Kids
Really?
are fine.
I will say, despite the challenges getting into schools and providing programming and counseling in the schools, more and more schools have been open to and inviting people to come in for external trainings for the school professionals and for the staff.
Right.
And
Because you got to get to them too.
yeah, and so I do these trainings throughout the state, and more schools are realizing the need for their staff to understand the signs and symptoms of trauma and how to have trauma-informed practices within the schools.
1 minute left, and it's Autism Month as well. And a good example of that is that we started programs here to train people in restaurants and stores and stuff to understand that the kid isn't necessarily he's not necessarily misbehaving. He's autistic and he's on the spectrum, and there's some things. And today there's a Muppets World or something, and I guess they announced that they're going to build like the whole park out to be autism friendly. So all their employees are trained, and it's just a really big thing, and it's catching on all over the country and all over the world that people just, in other words, I didn't know, I remember going to police calls where we were dealing with somebody with autism. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to deal with that person. So it's a lot about getting the information to people, and most of the time if you get information to the people, they'll understand it, right? It'll kind of like Jersey Shore. You watch it enough, you start to think of one of the characters and know who the people are. But we can't get in the same arena. But we can't get in the same arena to expose people to the real realities of life. What it is, you're like out there trying to, jimmy your way into the door, right? Hey, we're out of time. We overtime. Good night. God bless you. Remember, the world is run by those who show up. Look, they showed up. You got to show up. Good night.
Inside Leominster is brought to
And my family's in North Carolina. And you're like, okay. They'd take them to the station.